Okay, so let's just dive right into it. Going back a couple years, I started wearing the hijab. Now, it was not anything that I ever thought I would do, to be honest. I grew up in a very small town in British Columbia, and no one in my town wore the hijab. Growing up, there was maybe like one or two people that did wear it and they ended up taking it off. Or there was, one or two people that wore it and they ended up moving away. So no one was actually there consistently wearing the hijab. It just wasn't a thing. There were a lot of Muslims in the city that I lived in, the town that I grew up in. But like I said, no one really wore it. So it wasn't enforced. It wasn't anything that my parents like forced upon me or my sisters, which I really feel grateful for, because I feel like, you know, I came to this decision myself, and because of that, I feel like I'm stronger in this decision, and I feel a lot, I don't know, a lot more confident in my choice. So, like I said, I grew up, I went to high school, went to elementary school, just like any other ordinary girl in Canada. I wore t-shirts. I didn't ever wear shorts. But I did wear t-shirts and, dresses and, just had my hair out just like any other girl. So there was nothing really that set me apart from other people in terms of looking at me and knowing that I was Muslim. So like I said, it wasn't enforced by my parents. My mom did cover her hair, but didn't per se wear like hijab. Growing up, I never really had like a role model to look up to that wore it, and I never really felt like the need or like the pull to wear it, because I didn't really have like a role model to look up to or anybody to kind of like admire that wore it, or just like even seeing somebody in confidence wearing hijab. I just didn't have that. And so I just never thought about wearing it. Like, honestly, I never thought about wearing it at all. It didn't even cross my mind. So, I mean, I would obviously wear it during prayer and for Eid prayers, and that was basically it. Like, that's like the only time I ever wore it. So, flash forward to college, and I started to go to school for social work, and I was introduced to a local community group called the Interfaith Bridging Project. And I think that was kind of the pivoting point in my journey to embracing the hijab, because I joined this community group and no one else in the Muslim community wanted to join. So I kind of had like no other choice but to do it. And I did feel some pressure because I would sit down in the crowd and you couldn't really decipher, the Christians from the Jews, from the Hindus, from the Sikhs, from the Muslims. You couldn't decipher us at all. And so sitting there with this group of people, I just kind of realized, like, no one really knows that I'm Muslim, and people would look at me and ask me like, which faith are you from? It wasn't obvious. So kind of in this time period, I had met my husband, and he asked me a lot of questions about Islam, and some questions I honestly couldn't even answer myself. I was a born Muslim, obviously, and I just felt like there was a lot that I couldn't really understand, and not just understand, but I couldn't express it really well. So because of that reason, I started looking more inward and kind of doing a little bit more research about what hijab meant. And that's when I found these YouTube channels of a few girls that were on YouTube doing tutorials and talking about hijab and wearing hijab. And I felt really inspired by these girls. Hijab was not really a thing on YouTube at that time. It was very foreign, so there was only like 2 or 3 girls that were doing tutorials on YouTube, and I just kind of started learning how to wrap it, simply for these interfaith bridging meetings. That's like the only reason why I wanted to learn. And so I kept watching and watching and watching their videos and kind of binging them, and I don't know what it was, but it kind of changed my life. I started liking the idea of wearing hijab. I started to kind of wear it on the weekends, and I wore it every single time we had the Interfaith Bridging Project events. So people actually started to realize that I was Muslim, and people, they did question me like, hey, you're wearing it like more often now. But they were really supportive, and I feel like that group of people really helped me come out of my shell and really helped to make me open my own eyes to what hijab was. And ever since that day, I have not taken it off.